What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of 10K on the Bay. This is episode number 2 out of 8 on how to build a full-time income with an eBay or Amazon business with tech and sports. Today, we're going to talk about sourcing, and let's get it kicked off right with the first question, which is, what is the key to sourcing success? So, Tech, I'll let you answer first, and then I'll give my response.
The key for sourcing success, I believe, is just consistency. I think the more you're out there, the more you're looking, the more stuff you're going to be able to get. I mean, you can't get less stuff by looking more. So I think the key to sourcing is just consistency.
I 100% agree. I mean, I see people that say, I was not able to find anything the first time I went to Home Depot or the thrift store. And I want to just say that is probably the likelihood of finding something your very first time. It's going to take some practice. You're going to need a route. You're going to need to continuously improve. And I think that the people that survive in the reselling business spend time looking for sources every single week.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially if you go out one time the first time. You don't really have that notebook in your head of good inventory or good brands or profitable inventory. So if you go out once or twice and don't find anything, at that point you really don't know what you're looking for. But once you start to gain the knowledge and you keep going and you keep going, and the more you go, the more knowledge you'll gain, the more items you're going to find.
And we want to point out, it depends on where you live. Some people have manufacturers in their area. Some people have different types of thrift stores. You may live in a wealthy area. You may live in a rural area. And it's important to take a notebook, write down what's good, what's bad, so you can adjust your route to fit wherever you live.
Yeah, everywhere has their pros and cons. I mean, if you have someone who lives in a rural environment, maybe they don't have a bunch of thrift stores locally, but maybe they'll have a local auction or something, which I live in more of a city environment. We don't have that local auction. We have more thrift stores. I wish we had local auctions. I would be there every week because I think you can find profitable inventory there. Every place has its good and bad, but, I believe every place you can still make a full-time living doing this no matter what.
So let's go into the next question, which is, where can you find merchandise? And I'll just go over a few of the different things that we've come up with, and then we'll maybe go into each one individually. There's retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, which is finding retail goods at a discount and reselling them. There's wholesale, buying from people who sell to retailers. Ordering from AliExpress online or other sources that direct from China or Thomas.net in the States or South America or wherever you want to order your goods from the manufacturer. Thrift stores, flea markets, garage sales, auction sites. There's closeout and liquidation. You've tried quite a few of these. Do you want to start with, let's start with online arbitrage.
I've dabbled a little bit into online arbitrage. My experience with that is that a lot of people do that. And to me, in my opinion, that's a little like they say thrift stores is the low hanging fruit. But I think online arbitrage is even a lower hanging fruit than that because you have millions of people that have access to the same item that you're looking at. So if you go to a thrift store, there may only be a handful of people that have that specific item that you just found. So yes, it is low hanging fruit, but there's not as much competition. So my experience with the online arbitrage has been, I get it, I send it to Amazon real quick, and in a few days, now there's 5 or 6 or 7 people also on the listing. It's the usual race to the bottom, and I don't like to have a small ROI on my items, so I'm usually stuck holding until everyone sells out and the price comes back. So to me, that's not exactly where I want to be in my business, but I have seen people do it very profitably, but for me, just the time involved, that one has never seemed to really work out great for me.
Gotcha. And my experience with online arbitrage is just that it's capital intensive. You're buying stuff for, let's say even you make $100 profit. You may have to spend $500 on something to make $100 profit and battle all the other people who are getting it. It definitely does work when you're on Amazon. You can see the rank. The problem is how long you have to wait. I don't know. There is the benefit that you could potentially return the item if you want to be that guy, but it's not good to develop relationships, in my opinion, where you have to return a lot of things, and retailers can actually blacklist you if you continuously return goods. So that's not, it is definitely always available. And if you don't have the ability to leave your house, that may be your only option. So definitely explore, tread carefully. Online arbitrage is definitely, just like Tex said, available to millions of people. You can do it, and it's similar to drop shipping. So people who are arbitraging the difference in price between one website and another website. That's essentially what it is.
The people that I've seen that have success doing the online arbitrage are the people, like you said, who spend 500 and make 100. That barrier to entry is a little larger than spending a little bit and turning a profit. But those people that spend the 500 to make 100 or so, when you get a return, that hurts. When something happens, that hurts. The people that I see that are really successful, they run like 13% margins, and for me, coming from like an eBay background of like spending a couple bucks and making 50 or $100, it's always been difficult for me to lay a bunch of money on the line and get 13% back or 15% back. So that's why like I have trouble with the online arbitrage model.
Agreed. So the cousin of online arbitrage is retail arbitrage, where you go from store to store to store. There's a lot of people who do, for example, the Nike outlets, probably the most popular RA method for people hunting for shoes that are on clearance. Have you had any experience with this?
I've only bought a couple things from the Nike outlet. I did so more with the thought in mind to get Nike into the Amazon warehouse, sell that item, so that way, like, I'm a bona fide Nike salesperson. I have sales in that area, so when they did start gating Nike, I was grandfathered in. I think when I did that, I spent like $40 and made $40. So the ROI wasn't bad, but my experience with retail arbitrage is, if I'm in a store and I see something that's marked down, I'll scan it out of curiosity. And if it does work for me, then I do get it. I was at Pottery Barn a couple weeks ago. We were picking out some rugs, and they had some toys on clearance. They were like Tickle Me Elmo things. They were selling them for $8 or something, and they were coming in at 34. So I ended up buying like 50 or 60 of them, but I don't necessarily like run to store looking for retail arbitrage bargains. I mean, there's a lot of people who do that this time of year especially, and they make a lot of money. They do great, but that's not exactly my forte either.
And this is important to realize. Whatever you like to do, you do the longest, and you need to do something for a long time to get really good at it. And retail arbitrage is a skill. You have to know opposite traffic. I mean, the first time I tried Nike RA, I went on Saturday afternoon. There was like 500 people in the store. So like if you do Nike RA and you're the first person in the store, totally different. Your experience is going to be different, and you're going to have, in my opinion, trying to do RA at Nike requires that you know the manager, because it's very competitive. There are so many people in there looking for the same inventory. And it's the same thing. You see the race to the bottom. So be careful and be prepared to wait. If you buy a pair of shoes that's worth 100 and you get it for $40 at the outlet, expect the price to drop to 70 in the beginning. And you have to wait that out, or be the quick flip model. And it scares me, because we've looked at a few stores that buy for 45 and sell for 70 shipped. And even though it's fast, it's a little scary to put that much money on the line.
Yeah, there's a difference between spending $40 or $50 on your cost of goods and then being the guy who holds it. And there's a difference in spending a couple dollars, like thrift store, $1 or $2 or $5 or $10 per item, and being the guy that holds it. When something is that capital intensive, where you're spending $40 and $50 and you're buying multiples, that's a tough game to be the holding guy.
Absolutely. It's like you could easily spend, in my opinion, it's impossible to go to a Nike or even a clearance center in general and not find profitable items. It just depends on your budget, which is going to be the next question. But let's go into wholesale. Have you had any experience buying from people who sell directly to retail shops?
Wholesale, the only time that I get stuff in big bulk is maybe through a connection that I made at a garage sale or a flea market or something like that. Um, to have like a wholesale account, like a lot of these guys do on Amazon, I don't have any of those, but I do know people that buy wholesale and then they'll sell it to me. So they're the ones with the wholesale account. And even when they still take their little margin, I'm still able to do very well. I know a guy, he has a wholesale account for toys. So I buy it from him, send it to Amazon. Everything I get from him, I try to stay under 30,000 ring. And everything I get from him, I order from him once a week. And within a week to 10 days, everything is sold. I go back and get more. Um, I don't have any necessarily wholesale accounts with companies, but I'm always looking for bulk, always looking for a lot of items. So like I have gotten items from flea market or garage sale in bulk, like clothing or hard goods, things like that. I think that's a great way to get inventory and great way to make a lot of money. But to have wholesale accounts like that, I don't have any of those.
I think that the key to wholesale is networking. You meet people. I have two wholesale accounts that I just met from going to reseller events. I mean, if you were a wholesaler, you would go to reseller events to meet retailers because you're in the business of getting things from the manufacturer in some sort, and now you need to get rid of it. And for you, it's a volume game, so you need to know more sellers. And for you want to be the person that reliably buys, does business properly. If you have a at gmail.com, you don't look as professional as at whatever your store name.com. It looks more legit. And then there's a lot of people who open a brick and mortar business so that they can open up these wholesale accounts to sell online. That's not uncommon. I know a gentleman that wanted to sell Nike, so he opened a shoe store to get a wholesale Nike account. And that's how this type of business is traditionally done, is that you're retailing, people are wholesaling, you buy from them and you get going. Definitely a way to build a sustainable business is have a nice group of people that supply you, and all you do is handle the selling it to the end customer.
Yeah, that could be a great business model, especially if you can get fast moving stuff. But like you said, sometimes it does require a brick and mortar store. It requires a website. It requires you to be very, very legit to deal with these, multi-million, multi-billion dollar corporations. And if you don't have that, then it's hard to get into that game.
Absolutely. So let's go to the next one now, which is thrift stores. This is common if you live in an urban area. Let's talk about, obviously you have a lot of experience with thrift stores, but let's go into it.
Yeah, thrift stores. I've been going to thrift stores for 10 years now. That's really my bread and butter. The online arbitrage, the wholesale, the retail arbitrage. It's not really my game. I'm more a thrift store, junk store. That's the kind of sourcing that I like to do. As far as thrift stores go, I have a route that I go to 30 different thrift stores every single week. Some days I go to 4 or 5 stores. Some days I might do 3. But all in all, I end up hitting 30 stores a week.
Do you do it on the same, like you hit them up once a week, or do you go to certain ones every day, or how do you plan that out?
It's different. Sometimes some stores I go once a week. Sometimes I go once every other day. Sometimes I go twice a week. Some stores, they just need time to refill again. There's a great store I go to every Friday, but if I went on Monday or Tuesday again, I walk out with nothing. I go back the next Friday, I walk out with a full cart. So some stores, they just need time to get everything reset. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt to go a couple times, It doesn't hurt to pop back in, especially if you were just in a couple days before.
So I'm going to point out that there's also the Goodwill outlet, which is just a form of thrift store that's basically Goodwill retail rejects or stuff that's priced too high and doesn't move and gets moved to the bin, the Goodwill bins. And I just want to point out, for me personally, going to the retail thrift stores has been more profitable because of time. And I noticed that I can hit more stores now rather than digging through potentially bin or rejects at the Goodwill outlet. So even though the cost of goods is sometimes 10 times higher, I think the speed of being able to go through a thrift store where everything is literally organized. What do you think of
Yeah,
that?
I've seen guys locally that do great at the Goodwill at the bins. They do great. They always find great stuff. Um, I mean, even to them, like you said, you can look through 10 times as much stuff, but maybe at the bins you can look through 10 times as much stuff because it's just thousands of pieces in one of those big blue carts. It's just a different way of looking through the stuff. To me, on hangers, I do go quicker as opposed to flipping through the bins, but maybe I just haven't developed that skill of flipping through the bins like I have of going through all the hangers, because I can zip through hangers pretty quick. But when you put me in front of the bin with all that stuff, um, it's a bit more difficult.
When I go to, I've been to the Goodwill outlet a few different times, and for me, it looks like house moms eat first. So I just can't get in there and fight like they do. They're so tenacious, and that's what it takes because they bring out a new bin of fresh goods, and if you're a talented picker, 10 minutes later, a lot of the good stuff is going to be gone. That doesn't mean that you can't dig through and find an amazing piece, but it's just so competitive, and you've got to have that cutthroat mentality to get the good stuff. And because it's such a random sort of lottery type deal. Also, make sure when you are out at the bins to look over the items again before you leave, because I think that a lot of the rejects may have stains or missing buttons. That may be why they go to these types of places that are also called weigh and pay. So it's not just Goodwill who does this. Lots of different thrift stores and companies get rid of their clothing and pay by the pound form.
For the bins, you do bring up a good point, because down here it seems like they have teams of people that go. Like we have a lot of people from the Caribbean and from South America. All those people work together. All those people from the Caribbean work together. So there are guys that I know down there who do the same thing that you and I do, and they always have a guy they go with, or a buddy that they both go there with. And maybe that is helpful. I mean, I've seen people on Instagram who do the weigh and pay, and it seems like they also have like a couple buddies that go. And I think when you're a solo guy, if you got to go against the 10 people who are working together for one cause, it's going to be tough. So maybe having another guy there, or a helper, or your wife or something, maybe that does help for the bins.
There is also an opportunity to buy directly by the pallet from Goodwill. They sell pallets. They sell truckloads of clothing overseas to specific people. They sell mixed lots. You can buy a Gaylord, which is a 4x4 foot cardboard box full of mismatched shoes. That's how like specific you can get it. And if I don't know what you do with those shoes, but everything is available. You can get hard goods, you can get DVD, CDs, and the ranges from I've seen $40 for a Gaylord of plush, so stuffed animals, all the way up to $500 for a Gaylord of used bras. So like it's per square inch. I think bras might be the most valuable thing you can find in a thrift, as far as like they weigh 2 ounces but are worth $40 sometimes.
Right.
So,
And they're probably like semi-graded, like A grade pallet, B grade pallet. They're probably semi-sorted, semi-graded also.
and I think this is sort of a similar thing versus closeout liquidation or storage lockers. You can only see what you see from the outside. Try to make an offer based on the top layer or what's visible. And of course, I find it hard to believe that they don't stage those to make it look better than it is. So just be careful.
Right.
If I was selling those, I would put all the Patagonia on top, and the rest of it, you don't know what's in it. So that's scary.
Just from the storage lockers, when I used to have a storage unit a few years ago, I was friendly with the guy there. He would let me go through the locker before it was even up for auction, and he would cut off the lock and get stuff for himself. So I know at least there they've been gone through.
Yes, and people do like they just replace it with a different lock. I know it's a little bit shady and they're not supposed to do that, but it's just in the best. It's like they're business people, so I understand why they want to maximize their return on the storage lockers. And at some point, there are storage companies that are so big that they don't maybe they don't have time for that. So you can make money at storage lockers. And that's a business that I recommend you have the ability to process that stuff somewhere, because I made the mistake of buying 4 pallets because they were super cheap. So that, they made me an offer like 4 is the same price as 2. And I was like, okay, let's try it. And then I did not realize there's an extra cost of disposal. And I saw the statistic that only 10 to 20% of stuff at the thrift store is sold. So that means they have to dispose of 80, 90% of it. So that may happen to you if you buy a pallet and let's say a quarter of it's really good and you double your money on the whole thing. You still have the cost of storing and getting rid of the 3/4 that doesn't sell. And that's something that doesn't happen if you're hunting at the thrift stores, because you're only picking pieces that should sell.
Yeah, in business, there's always a cost to everything. Every aspect of the business is going to come with a dollar sign.
Absolutely. So then let's go to the next thing, which is flea markets.
Flea markets, I've had pretty good success there. They have a couple locally that I go to every now and then. Flea markets is a good place for you to kind of cherry pick the storage unit guys. So maybe necessarily you don't want to buy a whole storage unit. The storage unit guys will usually go around flea markets or even local auctions, and that gives you the opportunity to pick what you want to sell, and you don't have to deal with the whole storage unit. Most storage unit guys are smart about their items because they've been in the business for a long time, but also most storage unit guys are in the business of flipping the unit so they can go get more inventory. In my experience, those guys aren't really holding out. So if they do have something that's worth good money, they'll give it to you for the good price because they know you have to make money on it also. And they also know they need an empty truck so they can go back and get another unit. So flea markets can be good so you can, almost be in the storage game without being in the storage game. And you can also find a lot of stuff in bulk at flea markets also.
This is absolutely very true. You'll see at the flea markets, at least for me, there are different types of people. There are people who buy a spot to just sell their junk. So it's like a fancier garage sale because you have more traffic. And there's people who are there every single week. There's people who have sort of a retail spot where like they sell goods at eBay prices. So I mean, it's such a variance with flea markets, and I think that the relationship is key, because if you have a relationship with somebody who buys storage lockers or someone who gets rid of stuff from an estate sale, I will see those people at flea markets too, and they have more home goods, plates, VCRs, that kind of stuff. That is probably from somebody's house. It looks like somebody's house on the ground. So that is, if you know the person, getting it from the source would mean somebody just bought the storage unit, or they just are running this estate sale and they say, hey, we've got all these things that you normally look for. Do you want to come to the house or the storage locker and pick it up direct? And that's even better. That would be getting it before it goes to the thrift or the flea market, if you can pull that off.
Absolutely. I've seen the guys who do the estate sale closeouts at the flea market. The good thing about those guys is that most times the estate is from, elderly people. So you can find some good stuff in there that's old. You can find 40, 50-year-old things. Sometimes you can find 40 or 50-year-old things that are still brand new. So like flea markets, the estate sales, anywhere where you can get stuff in bulk and people are actively selling stuff in bulk, I mean, you're always going to find success in those kind of places.
One of the most, actually, I think the most expensive category on eBay, the one you can make the most money on, is antiques and collectibles. It's not an easy category. It's very competitive. There's a lot of fake antiques. It's not something that's easy to get into, but if you're looking for the buy for $10, flip for $6,000, that's the only category that does that, because you may find something rare where somebody passed away and then you can get it. No one's ever going to donate that. So you're going to have to get lucky and find that type of a scenario.
Yeah, that kind of game, the antique game, that's a game you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning, roll out of bed and be good at. That type of game is going to take several years of experience to kind of know what you're looking at and know what to look for. But I've seen guys buy a little elephant that's 3 inches tall for $5 and sell it for $15,000 because that little elephant was only given to certain members of the United Nations and is super rare. And I would pass by it like it was nothing.
And I want to point out, we did an interview with the Straight Eight, and he spends 70 hours shopping per week to buy 100 antiques. That's how hard it is. Like you need to know what you're doing, and also you need to go through a lot of items to really find the right ones and really get your game up to the point where you know that that elephant is worth money, but another one that's green was given to everybody and it's not worth anything. So like you would need to know your history. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go to the next one, which is closeout, liquidation, or store returns. Have you ever dealt with that?
The only closeouts that I ever done were stores going out of business. Like when Circuit City closed, I bought 4 or 5 Circuit Cities, and then when Sports Authority closed, I did the same thing, bought 4 or 5 Sports Authorities. But like for returns or anything like that, I've never done that. But you can find guys selling pallets of store returns at flea markets also. But the store returns and stuff like that, no, I've never done any of that.
I'm getting a little bit into that game, and the tags are cut. They're blacked out. They'll cut out stuff. And one thing you have to watch out for is authenticity. When you don't have the tag on an item, it's hard to verify if it's legit or not. So be careful when you're doing returns, and you don't know, excuse me, if the items have been used. There's like horror stories of people buying, 100 coffee makers, and then they get them, and every one of them has mold damage or something. So be careful in certain categories. Stuff that can easily be broken might be not a beginner thing to try, because it's going to be, first of all, it has to get to you and not break. And then secondly, you have to ship it to somebody else and have it not break. So closeout liquidation for home goods. I think this is one of the larger markets that's going to happen because a lot of retail shops are dying. So they have more and more discounted stuff that they need to get rid of. And one more thing I want to point out with this is you only have so much space, which is going to lead us to our next question, to run some kind of a business. So if you are in the mall and you have 1,000 square feet, you don't want 200 square feet of it to be clearance stuff, because that doesn't make you the margin. They don't mind getting rid of all their clearance stuff and just putting full retail items there, plus a couple to bring people in the store. So this is why they don't sell it themselves, because they make their money on full retail items. So they're getting rid of the junk. And if you want to resell that kind of stuff, it's awesome. But let's get into the next question, which is, how much space do you need to run an eBay business? And do you buy based on how much space you have?
I mean,
do you want to start with that?
Yeah, it all depends on what level you're at. When I first started doing eBay, I started like pretty much everyone else. I had like one bin in the corner of my bedroom, which grew to a wall of bins in the corner of my bedroom. So after that, I had to get a storage unit, then 2 storage units. Now I'm up to the point where I bought a duplex where I rent out one side to a renter, and the other side I store all of my stuff. So the duplex is 1,200 square feet. I have a 400 square foot shed in the back, and all the patios outside are kind of taped off where nothing will get wet. So right now I have about 3,000 square feet of storage. It's taken 10 years to get to that point, but unfortunately that's the point that I'm at. And unfortunately that's where you get when you're doing eBay. As far as, do you buy based on the storage that you have? When I see a good deal that's going to make a lot of money, I don't care about how I'm going to store it. I'll find a way to store it. So when I did have the bins taking up a wall of my room, I came up on a good deal of stuff that over the course of it being sold would make me $45,000. You buy it and you figure out how to store it after that. So after that, I got a storage unit. Eventually outgrew the storage unit because you're buying more stuff. And I guess for me, it's just once I outgrow this place, then whatever, I outgrow it and I get something else. So um, storage has never stopped me from making a buy, because you can always find a way to store something, and I'd rather do that than pass up on a really good deal.
I think that's super important to realize that you will find a way if you find the profitable item. There's a gentleman that contacted me in North Carolina that has um, he found a deal that would make him $6 million profit on the sale. It was like 500K, and it was worth 8 million, and he didn't have any storage at all. He just figured out a way to borrow money from friends and family to buy the stuff, and then he found the ridiculous space to put it in to figure out how to start selling it. So the key really is finding a good source and then figuring it out. But I think that don't get afraid of upgrading your inventory system when you're starting, but always have room to grow. So I started with pile on floor inventory system, like one corner of the room, then bins, now shelves, and then it slowly upgrades. But make sure you pick a system that can grow. So like my inventory system can hold 52,000 items at full scale with the numbering system. Don't do like 0 to 100 as your inventory system, because what happens if you have over 100 items? So make sure you upgrade as you go, and don't be afraid to like phase one system out as you grow. Like you don't stop your store and redo your whole inventory system. Just leave that inventory system, in my opinion, because eventually all those items will sell, and then it'll be grandfathered into your old system. And once it's gone, it's gone. You can go into the new one. And one more thing I want to talk about with space: you need a clean area to list. If you're listing and you have all this stuff around you, you're not going to have a clear mind, and you're going to not be able to focus. I've even told people who've overbought and they have a whole house full of stuff and they have a listing problem. And I'm like, just clear out one corner and face the corner so you don't see all that junk behind you, and just start going. How do you, have people asked you before, like, what do they do if they buy too much stuff?
I mean, there's only one answer for that. Is just you have to do the work and list it. You have to take the photographs. You have to get the inventory on eBay, because when people ask me that, I ask them, have you ever went to the back room of Walmart and bought anything? And they say, well, no. And I say, so how is anyone going to go in your back room and buy something? You can only buy something that's on the sales room floor. So if it's not on eBay, it's not for sale. Like, I've never gone to Walmart and say, hey, let me look in the back, see what you got. Never. So if you're overwhelmed with the stuff, you just got to take it day by day and just got to get it up, because if not, you're only going to become more overwhelmed.
That's right. So let's go to the next question, which is, what's your sourcing schedule, and is it the same each week?
My sourcing schedule is 7 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I hit thrift stores on all of those days. Thursday, they have like a little market over here where I go. Saturday and Sunday, I do garage sales in the morning, and then after that, I go to thrift stores. So all in all, like I said, I hit 30 stores a week. I probably hit 30 garage sales a week, and then I do go to the little market. So that's pretty much where I'm at this stage.
That is amazing. My schedule or my sourcing route is not set yet, but I think it will be soon. But I'm trying to spend 3 full days, like wake up to end of the day sourcing, and the rest of the 4 days working on listing it and getting it organized. And obviously I have more time. I'm okay with working on this 7 days a week, a little bit each day. I think that that's more realistic than people who try to cram it into a 40-hour thing. I think doing it a little bit each day is more reasonable, because your business doesn't sleep when you have an online business.
No, never. Where I found the most success is doing things in blocks. So in the morning, I'll take a few hours and get everything packed. I might go do something else, and then I'll take 2 hours and go sourcing. Then I might do something else, and then I'll take 2 hours at nighttime and list. So like, if you try to work 8 to 4, 8 to 4, 8 to 4, it may not work out like that, because like you said, it's a 24-hour business no matter how you chop it up. But for me, the way I found the most success is blocking up my time and every day I spend the same time doing it. So in the morning I have that block, I get everything shipped. In the afternoons I have that block, I go and source. Um, at night I have that block where I get everything up. And without that kind of schedule and without that kind of sourcing, that's when you do become overwhelmed with, you know, the death pile and all that stuff in the corner, because you have to have the discipline to block out that time, and that's what you're going to do no matter what. Um, if you had to work in an office from 8 to 4, then 8 to 4 is blocked out to go work in an office. You're not able to watch TV or watch a movie or talk to your friends or do something else. So it takes the same dedication in any business, or especially if you're working for yourself, where during that time, that's the only thing that you're doing.
So let's get into how much budget should you start with? What's realistic? What do you think?
I started with $35. I bought a T-Mobile Sidekick on Craigslist, and I sold it for $74.99 on eBay the same night. So, and then with the $74, I probably bought 2 more, and then I sold them for $140. So, I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to get started in this business. And once you get to a point where you are selling a lot of stuff, then you really have no budget after that. You pretty much buy whatever you want and as much as you want, but it does take a while to build up to that point.
And I just want to point out that you can start with free. You can just sell the stuff in your house first, get a little bit of cash. And I advocate selling everything you own, because this is the reason why I say that. Let's say you have a jacket and you like it. I still think you should sell it if you want to get started, so you can get an idea. You might be passionate about jackets, and if you sell it, first of all, you can buy it again on eBay, because everything is on eBay, and you can get an idea of what something that you already know. You spent the money on that retail possibly, so you know what you paid for it. Then you see what it sells for on eBay. Now you found maybe potentially a niche. I don't see too many people that specialize in 40 categories. They start, and if they do, they started with 1 and added 1 by 1 by 1. So your budget, I recommend you don't, it's almost like you want to start from 0, because you can turn 5 into 10 into 50 into 100 and then just keep going. And if you can find a different source of income and let that roll into itself, it doesn't take very long for it to get really big.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
If you can also have it all be in one bank account, then it will also make it easier for your CPA. If you use only your PayPal debit card to buy things, then you can also have an idea of how much money you're making if you just leave the money in that account. You can get an idea, okay, you want to make sure that account grows. And either your inventory is going to grow or the bank account money is going to grow. And I also want to make one more suggestion, which is don't necessarily just buy everything when you're just getting started. I almost recommend people please try to make 20 or $30 profit in the beginning, because not everything sells. So that's going to bring us into our next question. But do you have a price range that you want people to stay in when they're just getting started?
Like we talked about the other day, most things at thrift stores, I think that you can find items that will sell for around $30 pretty easily. So if you have to spend $5 to $7 on something that will sell for $30, I think that's a good starting point, and it's still enough meat on the bone, and those items are still plentiful, and those items aren't gonna, put you in too much financial distress if you buy, I don't know, 6 or 7 of those items. You got $30 or $40 invested in your inventory that can potentially bring back, $150 or so. To me, that would be a good starting place.
And I want to point out something on that. So say you buy something for 7 and you have it up for sale for 30, and let's say something happens to you and you need money right away. If you discount it to 20, it should move right away, because it's well below market and you can get that cash flow back if you need it. However, if you buy something for $1 or free and sell it for 12, you don't have any room to discount it to move it faster. If you start at an auction at a penny plus shipping, you're just getting your initial investment back, which is only $1. So I just recommend try to be in that $30 range. You can find them at the thrift store. Spend a little bit more time. I would rather have one $30 item than three $10 items. And I think it's just
Yeah,
important to
sure.
start that way. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, and I want you guys to not be afraid of going to the thrift store and not buying anything because you didn't find anything, rather than just forcing yourself to buy something while you're there. That's a big mistake that I see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've gone to a thrift store before and not bought anything.
For me, that's been a very long time because fortunately my thrift stores stay heavily stocked, but it does happen every now and then.
So, okay, let's go into how do you determine how much profit you want to make? Is there specific price tiers that you look at beyond the $30 one?
Yeah, like if I spend $1, I want that item to sell for $20 or so. If I spend $5, I want it to sell for at least 30. If I spend 10, it's got to sell for 40 or $50. Anything after that, 15 or 20, then you're talking about an item that's going to sell for 80 or $100. That's just always where I've been comfortable at on those type of ROIs. And at the end of the day, once you average it all out, you come out with like a $30 or $35 average sale price, and your average buy price is, you know, $5 to $7.
What do you think is worth? How do you determine if something is worth buying or not? How do you know what the market value is?
I mean, you can always look it up on eBay. You can look up the comps and you could do your research that way. Um, for me, I try to look for unique stuff, cool stuff that doesn't have a whole lot of competition. But you can always take your phone out and you can look it up and you can do your research, and that'll prevent a lot of bad buys at the end of the day, especially if you're just getting started.
This is a good point. So, for example, if you look at two dress shirts, and one is I'll use Emile Laferrie, which is this French designer guy, and that if you search on solds right now, you'll see that there's probably 100 for sale and like 150 sold. So the demand is higher than even the amount listed when you compare sold versus listed. Versus if you were to look at Banana Republic dress shirt, there might be 15,000 for sale and only 2,000 sold. Now that would be scarier and actually more risky because you're competing against people who are doing literally $1 free shipping. They're losing money just to get rid of the item out of their inventory. You're competing versus in the Emile Laferrie dress shirt, pre-owned, there's none under $30. So this is the stuff you'll learn when you go into the thrift. Eventually, you'll recognize brands. So now I know every single time I see that brand, I'm just going to pick it up as long as the condition is reasonable because I know that the market's really small. So it's going to not take too long to sell.
Yeah. If you're just starting out and you buy 25 Banana Republic shirts that have 15,000 other items on eBay, you're going to have a tough time. If you have a large inventory, like for me, I have a large inventory. So yeah, it would be great if I can find items that have a sell-through rate higher than what's on eBay. But if you're able to build up a large inventory, then you can play both games. Like I'm not crazy heavy on something that has 15,000 items on eBay, but I'm not afraid to pick up an item like that because stuff will sell every single day, whether it's the shirt you mentioned that I've never even heard of that I'll go look up after this, or something like a Ralph Lauren shirt that has 80,000 other competition on eBay. If you have enough items, that shirt that has 80,000 competition will sell eventually. It's all about how fast you want the inventory to turn. I don't mind if something sits around for a couple of months because I have grown the inventory to have things selling every single day. So in the beginning, probably not wise to go after a bunch of things that have a lot of competition.
And this is a great point because, there's a lady I know that in her area, they don't have very good items. So for her, maybe she has to sell Morona, which is the, Target brand. But here's the thing, she still makes a full-time living because of this reason. Morona has millions of customers. People know what it looks like. It's sold to every single Target. They may want to replace a certain piece, and she has an inventory large enough. She has 3 or 4,000 of these items. They sell every single day because she has the right pricing and it's presented properly. And even though she's in a really, really competitive market, for her, that's all she can find. And she knows her market really well. And she knows, as an example, plus size is going to sell well, regardless of what brand typically. So if it's in good condition, she knows that. She knows which styles do well. And also, when you're at that kind of knowledge of your niche, you don't have to have best offer. You can just wait for the item to sell at the market. For example, pretty much every Ralph Lauren shirt has a market for that type of shirt, dress shirt, t-shirt, etc. And they're limited in quantity, meaning they're maybe not going to make that design ever again. So you can, if you understand the market, t-shirts are going for X, you can price it at X and just wait. Eventually it will sell for sure.
Right. At the end of the day, it's just about cash flow. If you have the cash to let things sit and wait, then you can go after the items that have a little bit more competition more heavily. If you don't have the cash flow to sit and maybe wait a couple of months for your items to sell, you're going to want to try your hardest to find items that are going to sell quicker and are more rare and have less competition.
Absolutely. So let's now talk about the person that wants to get into a new category. So let's say I want to sell plates or china. I saw somebody on Instagram flipping china for megabucks, and you now hear that and you're like, okay, just like you said, you're going to look up the shirt name that I just said. I just told you that Royal Albert teacups sell for bank. What do you do now with that information?
Now that information's in my head, so if I flip over a teacup and see that name, I'll investigate further. But the only way that I've ever gone into a new niche is just seeing something of quality, investigating a little further on the spot, and then maybe making the buy. Come home, you're still not familiar with the item. You do a little bit of research, and then you start to see similar items like that. That's always how I've kind of branched off and done other things.
That's such a great point. You start to recognize quality within your own niche. And the reason why I discovered this shirt brand is because the stitching looks different. So when I go through the shirts, I'm looking at it and all of a sudden something looks different. Like as an example, Robert Graham is a pretty flamboyant shirt typically. If you're standing 3 feet from the rack and you just look from left to right, you could probably spot a Robert Graham shirt. So that's something that, you're going to recognize that. And then don't run out and buy any Robert Graham you see, because even within that brand, some don't sell.
Right. Or some take a lot longer to sell. Yeah.
That's correct. Actually, everything sells, which I think is also important. And that's a good thing for us to end on. Everything will sell eventually. It just depends at what price and how long you can hold up that capital.
I agree 100%. At the end of the day, you just got to get it up and someone will come along eventually and buy it.
And the last thought that I have is that sourcing is probably part one of this whole journey. When you want to be in e-commerce, you figure out, and most people, the way they get into it is they flip one thing at a profit and they get hooked. And once you figure out the sourcing, the rest of it is easier to look up, like how to store things. There's inventory systems, there's accounting systems. All that is taught, but the sourcing is very unique to you. I don't think everything else is less creative, but the actual sourcing and where you get your stuff, there's creative people who are able to do it with no capital. I know a gentleman that didn't have any money, so he went to a pawn shop and he said, hey, can I list all the stuff before it goes for sale? Because for pawn shops, they have to wait 30 days or something before they can sell it to make sure it's not stolen. So he's like, right, could I list it during that time, like say the week before it goes up? And if it sells, can they come pick it up? And if it's literally only win-win for the pawn shop. They don't have to invest anything, and they might be able to sell it online immediately when it's available for sale. So he arbitraged his time with their inventory, and even with no money was able to get off the ground. So like you should be able to find a way to be resourceful and make this work.
Right. Like you said, that guy, he didn't have any money, but he had time. If most times, if you don't have a lot of money, you have a lot of time. So, if you're just starting out or you're not making what you want to make, maybe take some more time and go to more stores and try to find more stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining us. Next week we'll have a new topic. Every week we release these on Monday. So we'll talk to you later.
All right. See you. Thank you.